everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Rich Sports Talks. We have our latest New York Jets mock draft. The combine has coming on, and we have officially had our first pit stop in the draft process with the combine. So much to talk about. Again, a little heads up with these mock drafts. Again, I love doing them. I will be doing a full 7-rounder, but after free agency. Again, it helps me get a clearer picture because especially day 3, you're really filling a lot of the depth pieces. But some good news on the Jets draft front. According to the compensation picks, we were expecting the Jets to get 2 5s. They're actually getting a 4th and a 5th. The DJ Reed contract will net the Jets an additional 4th rounder. So the Jets will not have not 1, but 2 4th-round picks, including pick 103, which is at the top of the 4th round, which is a pick I could easily see them moving back into the top 3. So let's look at the first 2 days of the draft. So this is I'm going to look at the first 3 rounds, how the Jets could potentially attack, move up, move down the board, how I think the Jets draft will go. And again, I'm leaning more to what I think the Jets will do and how the board could potentially fall. So there's a lot to get into. Let's get right into it with our latest mock draft post-combine edition with the second pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. The New York Jets will select Arvell Reese of Ohio State. Look, I think this is going to be a coin flip between David Bailey and Arvell Reese. I also think Sonny Styles has entered the equation. Personally, I love Sonny Styles. I would love to have him in the middle of my defense for a long time. I just think, unfortunately, at number 2, the Jets aren't going to go there, and there's a lot of linebackers in free agency and later in the draft that I think the Jets could attack. I think they're going to bet on the upside of Reese. I've been going back and forth. I think David Bailey is the more polished product at this point. But with the 3-4 defense, I think what the Jets are going to likely do is move Reese around the formation, have him play edge on occasion, but move him around to the inside, having blitz from all over. I mean, you look at the upside, only 20 years old, incredible athlete, has insane speed, great hand ratio, able to fight. And look, I know it's a projection coming off the edge. And I will say this, if Jet fans are expecting this guy to come in and have an 8 to 10 sack season, I think you'll be disappointed. I feel his best football will be 2 to 3 years down the road, but I still think he will make an impact in both the run game. He can set the edge. He will fly around this defense. I just think they look at the athleticism, the upside, and the ceiling. And at number 2, they're going to go for the higher ceiling. I think David Bailey is still going to be a really great pass rusher in this league. But the Jets are going to look at Arvell Reese and go, this is an incredible athlete. This is someone that we can use as a weapon at different stages of our defense, maybe not as a traditional pass rusher the first season, but we can move him around. We can put him in good spots, and he can be a dynamic player in our defense. So I think Arvell Reese will be the pick at number 2. Again, I wouldn't rule out David Bailey. I wouldn't rule out Sonny Styles. I do think Sonny Styles has entered the conversation just because of the leadership characteristics that I do think Aaron Glenn's looking for in a player, the athleticism he brings to the table. But let's face it, if you draft an Ohio State kid in this draft, I don't think you can go wrong, which leads us to pick 16, Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Now, look, I could see the Jets moving up from 16 to 12 to maybe try to get one of these players that are dropping down the board. I think there's a lot of options at 16. But to me, I feel one of the receivers is going to drop outside of the top 16. Tyson, I think, gets picked because of the insane workout he had. I just feel like Carnell Tate, and again, Mekhi Lemon could also be here. I think Carnell Tate gets here with a slightly slower 40. But again, this is a player that I really love. I mean, I think that this is a player that's a dynamic player. He can start day 1. He can line up next to Garrett Wilson. And I think at this point, too, a lot of the teams in this mid-teen range are looking at the board going, we like Carnell Tate a lot, but we have bigger needs on the offensive line and the defense. And this is a really deep wide receiver class where I think a lot of them are going to look and go, you know what? We like the value we can get on day 2 with the wide receiver position. And at this point, when the Jets look at the board, Carnell Tate's really the last blue chip prospect in this draft. He will be an impact player day 1. I also think the Ohio State connection helps with Garrett Wilson. And look, you all of a sudden now look at a team with Carnell Tate, Garrett Wilson, A.D. Mitchell, Breece Hall now back in the fold. And all of a sudden you're looking at the weapons on the Jets and going, you know what? This is a pretty damn good team, and this is a pretty damn dynamic offense. So again, I have Carnell Tate going pick 16 to the Jets. Now, again, I think this could be a trade-off spot. I've seen a lot of mocks having them go all the way up to 7 with pick 44. Unfortunately, I think if you're going to package pick 44, you can go up to maybe 12 or 13. I don't think it's going to be that big of a jump. Like, you're going to have to throw in a lot of assets. And I think the Jets will be patient. They'll pick at 16, and they'll get a dynamic receiver who will be an instant impact player. So now we get to round 2, day 2 of the draft, and we have some breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. So pick 33 will be an interesting pick, I think, for the Jets, because it is the most traded pick in the National Football League, because you have a day in between. People look at their board. I think the Jets come out and saying, look, we got a dynamic receiver. We got a dynamic rusher. Ty Simpson's no longer on the board, who we might have considered at 33. But there's a big hole. They don't have a third-round pick. So enter in the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have the most picks in this draft, and I don't think any team's going to want to give up assets in the really talented 2027 draft. The Steelers have the most picks of any team. They will give the Jets pick 53, a second-round pick 76, which is a late third-rounder, and pick 135, which is a very late round 4 pick for pick 33. So the Jets go back into round 2. They still stay in the top 60. They acquire a third-round pick where they didn't have a third-round pick thanks to the Hassan Rag trade. And as a little bit of a push or an incentive, they get pick 135. I think there's going to be a lot of teams bidding for the 33rd pick. And this is the offer. And again, the Steelers throw in the 4th, the 135. They have a ton of picks, including multiple in round 3. So for them, it's not that big of a loss. So they go up to 33. Jets go back to 53. They still have 44 and 53 in round 2. So let's dive into what the Jets now will do with their next 3 picks. So up first at pick 44, I am then going with Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety from Toledo. Safeties, again, tend to drop in the draft. I think there's going to be a run, especially in round 2, on receivers, offensive linemen that didn't get picked on day 1. So with that being said, you always see some of these borderline first-round defensive players fall. I do think the Jets will address the safety position, but it's going to be tough to pass up on Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Again, ran a 4.52 at the combine. I really love his mobility. He's got range. He's got very good instincts against the pass. And one thing he does that's very good is he's very good at the peanut punch, punching out the football, which, again, you see the Jets not being able to create turnovers, not being able to get off the field. I think that will be a very nice piece to bring in. And look, it's clear that Aaron Glenn on this defense wants bigger players. And this is a guy that at 6'3", 209, this is a big safety. This is someone that is a presence on the back end of the defense, and I feel like the Jets would love to have him. This is a great value pick, and I think this is one of those situations kind of like A.Z. Thomas last year where, yeah, there's a lot of great players on the board. Safety might have been filled out in free agency, but you look and say, you know what, the value here is just too good to pass up. So at pick 53, which is the Steelers pick that the Jets have just traded for it, again, comment super chat to jump to the front of the line. I have them going back to the defensive side with Gabe Akis, the edge from Illinois. Look, this is someone they interviewed at the combine. He's an athletic build. He's quick, violent pass rusher. Again, has a wrestling background, which helps with his fluidity and the handwork that he brings. Has a heavy hands as a run defender to strike. And look, this is some guy that was very, very productive. All Big Ten, 74 tackles, 13 tackles for a loss, 8 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. And this is someone that can make an impact. And look, bigger edge, 270, which again, when you looked at Jermaine, was close to 250, 255. With this move to the 3-4, is a guy that can line up on the edge, earn early downs, can maybe kick inside if they go to a 4-man front on 3rd and long. I just look at it, athletic defensive end, can move around, forces turnovers. And look, this is a guy that forced 3 fumbles. Like we talked about last year, the Jets had 4 turnovers all of last season. They need guys that have a nose for the football and guys that can make an impact on the game. I think that this is a guy that will be a nice fit to this team. Again, needs a little bit of work against the run, but I do see the size. I see the ability to anchor. And this is someone, again, get productive players. Like the Jets, like if you look at a tail in this draft, they're getting highly productive players. And that's what they need. So now we move to the final pick of our draft, pick 76, which was the Steelers' 3rd-round pick. And I'm going to talk about all the different options. Again, I do think the Jets can get another 3rd-round pick. They have pick 103, which is the top of the 4th round, to get back into the back end of 3. I have the Jets at 76, going with the best hair in the NFL draft, Gettings Dunker, the offensive guard out of Iowa. Now, here's why I'm going this route. It appears at the moment, again, at the time of this recording, that the Jets are kind of mum on AVT coming back. The Jets need to have a strength of the offensive line. And I do think the Jets will explore offensive line in round 2 or 3, especially if AVT's gone. And this is why the extra pick now really helps him out. Gettings Dunker, I just love this dude. And can you imagine the flow the Jets will have with Joe Tippmann and Dunker on the inside of guard? Look, he was a right tackle for Iowa. Projects better as a guard. Again, Bruce strength, old school dude, just really has great hands, is a nasty mauler in the run game. And the Jets want to run the football. They want to be nasty up front. And John Simpson kind of brought that nastiness. And if he's going to be gone, you need some dude in the middle that's going to get nasty with people. I could see him being a really good fit again. Moving to left guard might be a bit of a transition, but this is someone that I could still see being plugged and played as a rookie, or maybe eased in as a rookie and making an impact on the inside of guard. This is a really deep guard class, and especially tackles transitioning to guard. So I think Dunker will be in play here. But before I move on, I do think the Jets will likely draft a quarterback on day 3. Again, now with 2 fourth-round picks. I think they'll wait to see who gets out of day 2, whether it's a Drew Aller, potentially, and draft them at the top. And maybe they'll even use 103 if they really like Drew Aller to sneak into the last picks of day 2, get one of the late 3rd-round picks. Jets have a ton of picks. And the other thing, too, with these picks, too, is they have a bunch of 5th, 6th, and 7th. I predict they're going to trade 1 or 2 of them for a player. I just feel like that's a way Muji operates. We've seen a lot of these pick swaps for players. So right now, the Jets in this scenario, they come out with a dynamic linebacker that can move around. They get a great number 2 receiver. They get an extra pick. They get a safety who's a dynamic playmaker. They get an edge rusher who can play in the run and early down situations, and adds another pass rusher to a really depleted room. And they get a guard with a mean streak that can play. So again, that's my post-combine mock draft. I know no quarterback selected. And a lot of people are saying, well, when are they going to go with the quarterback? I do think they will eventually get a quarterback on day 3. Again, they have 2 4th-round picks now, the DJ Reed compensation one. Comments, super chat, jump to the front of the line. Let's get some of what you have to say here. All right. Day 3 selection must be productive this year to fill holes in. Tony, I think it's one of 2 things. One, I think for day 3 picks, I do think they're going to move some of them to get people that are 1st or 2nd year players, like they did with Juwan Briggs. That is one thing in the process that I'm looking for, because I do think Muji has proven he can get the really good value and understand the top of the board. But day 3, and the other thing too is the Jets are due a day 3 player, man. The Jets are due a player that comes out of nowhere and is a really damn good football player. And look, this is a draft. We're on day 3. I'm hoping that at this point that the Jets are kind of just filling in pieces and not relying. The problem with last year's draft is you were relying on a lot of the day 3 picks. You were relying on Kiko if there was an injury in the linebacking core, which there was early. You were relying on Tyler Barron, basically being this team's edge rush specialist coming out of camp, just because they were so thin at that position, and that never materialized, and he was an active lot. And even Arian Smith, you were hoping he could make an impact in the offense, and he had, I think, 8 to 11 catches last year, and he made more plays on special teams. So I am curious to see how Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, because again, they're a package deal, will attack day 3 of the draft. But I also think, too, that they're going to move some of those picks to basically go out there and get some veteran presence, like especially 1st or 2nd years players. Go mostly defensive player of the draft and use free agents and full voids on offense. I would say, Troy, that's a very good observation. I get the feeling they will lean more heavily on defense and free agency as well. I do think on offense, it's going to be fascinating because the wide receiver 2 is the big one. Are they going to trade for a wide receiver 2? If they do that, then that really impacts the draft, and especially pick 16. Like if you get a true number 2 receiver and you're not desperate in this draft, do you have the ability to go up? Like my dream scenario, somehow Sonny Styles gets to around 8 or 9 and you trade up for him. But the other thing too is I look at this free agency class, it does tend to skew more defensive players and defensive talent. But the other thing too is will AVT be back? Will John Simpson be back? Like, what are they going to do at the guard position? And I am not going down the Mekhi Becton road because he was just cut by the Chargers in the last hour. But for defensive players, like the big thing I want for the Jets for the draft is very simple. I don't want them to be desperate. I don't want them to be desperate to the point where it's like, okay, we have to get a receiver. We have to get a safety. We have to get a defensive end. I want them trying to pick the best players available to improve this roster. I don't want them in a position where they have to take a receiver because they didn't address it in free agency or they didn't address the safety position in free agency. Like, don't be desperate because when you get desperate, you make desperate moves. You overdraft people. You look at a position where, well, we really love this really great player and he's higher on our board, but if we don't get this receiver now, the receivers afterward are just an absolute mess. And the Jets kind of got caught with their pants down last year where they went in the draft, were desperate for a receiver, desperate for a D tackle, and then weren't able to capitalize. And all of a sudden on day 3, it's like, well, we got to draft at least some receiver. So let's take a swing on Arian Smith. And my big thing is just fill the potholes on this team. Just fill holes. Don't be a sieve. Don't come in this thing like they're going to need edge rushers. We know this just because of the way they're restructuring the defense and also how let's face it, Will McDonald's right now the only edge. So, and again, like some of the rumors online, I just love the rumors today, like Tua to the Jets. Tua has one win in freezing weather, and that was against the Jets. You're really gonna bring in that guy in cold weather? Yeah, good luck. So, and again, at number 2, I do still think it is still not a runaway thing. Like I look at Bailey. I mean, again, Bailey's still 6'4", 250. He ran a 4.5. He wasn't a slouch, and I just look at him last year, like he's about the same size and length as an Abdul Carter. He fits that edge persona. The perfect scenario would be if the Jets could trade back 2 or 3 picks and get more picks, but I just don't see that happening. But, you know, I'm just curious to see what they do with the quarterback. And again, how they address the quarterback position is going to be very interesting. Like, do they go out and trade for a Tanner McKee? Do they go out and sign a Kyler Murray? Do they go out and sign, do they go out and sign a Kirk Cousins? I mean, it's all a trickle-down effect, and this is why it makes it a bit tricky for the Jets right now in doing these mock drafts, because if the Jets trade for a true wide receiver too, and this is why I'm only doing the first 2 days of the draft, then all of a sudden, like, they're not picking Carnell Tate at 16. They're probably going to look to maybe draft a guard there, again, which would drive Jet fans nuts because every year you have to take an offensive lineman in the first round, potentially. So I would just, again, do they trade for Jacoby Brissett? I mean, Brissett's someone that's worked with Frank Wright in Indianapolis. If they could trade, again, one thing I'd look at, I wouldn't trade 103, which is the high 4th round pick, but do you trade the comp pick for DJ Reed, the late 4th rounder, and maybe try to have the Cardinals throw in a 7th that you can then use on another potential Jawan Briggs type of trade? Potentially. Like, I would rather have Jacoby Brissett than Kyler Murray. And again, Kyler Murray at his best is a good football player. I mean, there's a reason why he was the first overall pick in the draft. But you have to wonder at this point at 28. And sometimes it happens. And I said this kind of about Mekhi Becton, who I mentioned earlier in this show. Sometimes with these first-round picks, they have to be humbled a bit, where all of a sudden they realize, oh, I have to make a change. Maybe this is the wake-up call for Kyler Murray and people in his ear like, look, Kyler, you're 28. This might be your last shot. And the other thing with Kyler, too, is I don't know why he picked the Jets. If I'm Kyler Murray, my first phone call is to Minnesota saying, hey, I saw what you did for Sam Darnold. I can tell you don't love JJ. Like, sign me up. Like, I just feel like with Kyler, there's 2 or 3 teams that are better fits for Kyler right now than Kyler coming to the Jets. And if Kyler does come to the Jets and, you know, all those other teams are saying no, that's kind of I think a red flag going, well, if they're all saying no, why should we say yes? But again, comments, super chat, jump to the front of the line, or if you want to make a donation to the channel again, a recap on our mock draft, Arvell Reese at 2, Cardinal Tate at 16, trading down with the Steelers, pick 33 to acquire 53, 76, and 135. 44, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, the safety, Gabe Akis from Illinois, the edge at 53, and Gennings Dunker, the guard from Iowa, at pick 76. Let's get some more of your questions here. That would be a tremendous draft if Reese at 2, then move up to get Styles. The problem is Styles. Like, I just look at the board, and if I'm the Giants at 5 and I'm Harbaugh and I'm looking to build a culture, I mean, Styles will be hard. I mean, like, never forget, who was the culture center when Harbaugh first got to Baltimore? It was Ray Lewis. It was having that dude in the middle of your defense. And, I think it'd be hard up. I look at Robert Saleh even at 4. He loves C.J. Mosley, and he understands the importance of a great middle linebacker. Like, I think it's hard for me to see Sonny Styles getting out of the top 5, especially when you hear all the things about him, how great of a leader he is, how people view him as being a future CEO of a Fortune 500 company because he's that smart and he's that relatable. I just don't see him getting out of the top 5. Like, the one player that might get out of the top 10 now is Caleb Downs, but it's because of that meniscus ACL thing. And again, I'm of the opinion I need to get from more reputable sources. I'm still on the fence about that. And again, are you trying to drive value down? My thing too is, like, if Caleb Downs truly has a knee issue like that, it would take him off my board in round 1. Because the big thing for the Jets is they need dudes that can play. They need dudes that are available. Like, they can't go out there and have one of their top first round picks who has a major knee issue go out and have a major knee issue 4 weeks in the season. They just can't do that. Let's see. Muji will have his scouts this year, and that should be more productive than JD's scouts last year. I agree in a sense because, again, the Jets have redone their scouting department. Again, they had scouts that were there for 15 years, which, again, is alarming that they were there for 15 years. But, again, I do think their pro scouts are definitely better, Tony. Again, comment, super chat. Reese plays basically 3 positions, which would be hard to pass up. And again, it all comes down to like what you prefer. Like, for me personally, when I look at the 2, I feel like David Bailey, and this is the other thing we have to consider. Reese is a longer-term player. He has a higher ceiling. There's no question. But a lot of what we are looking at him is what we're projecting or how we think he will develop. And I keep bringing this up, and I do think this has to be brought into the equation, which is we understand that Aaron Glenn's on a hot seat. Is he going to take the player in Arvell Reese, who, again, has more of a ceiling, but might take a little time in year 1, or get David Bailey, who might be able to walk on the field in year 1 and get you 10 sacks for a coach that's on the hot seat? I mean, that to me is something that you have to keep in equation. And the other thing, too, is, and this is my argument with Sonny Styles and Reese. Well, people are like, well, Arvell, we're projecting to be the edge. We can move him inside. We can blitz him from the inside. He can play weak side linebacker throughout the formation. And then I turn around and I go, well, that's going to be his role year 1. Why not Sonny Styles, where you can have him in the middle? You can blitz him from the middle. And I look at this edge class. I'm like, if the Jets did this hypothetically, if they really got their true number 2 receiver, like let's say via trade, and they were able to do that, and they picked Sonny Styles at 2 and then came back and got an edge at 16, like, I wouldn't hate that. I really would not hate that. And I do think that is an avenue you have to explore. And the one thing I think that keeps the door open on Sonny Styles is Aaron Glenn really needs leaders in this room. He needs guys that are culture changers. And I do think Arvell Reese is a player that will transform the Jets defense. But is he, quote, going to change the culture? And if Sonny Styles is a guy that Aaron Glenn feels can really change the culture, in my opinion, it might be worth it just to overdraft him a little bit. Like, if he's really going to be the leader of this defense and you think he can be the captain of this defense, yes, I understand it's pick 2. Yes, I know it's not a premium position, even though I view middle linebacker as a premium position. Yes, I understand it's not an edge rusher. Yes, I understand Arvo Reese is an incredible athlete. But I just look at Sonny Styles and I'm like, if he's my middle linebacker for the next 10 to 12 years and is a leader and captain of my defense, it might be worth it because you never know at 16. I mean, Ruben Bain could fall to 16 or get into the 16 range because of the short arms. I mean, what if they did this? What if they took Sonny Styles early at pick 2 and then rebounded with Keldrick Falk at pick 15? I mean, he fits what they're looking for. Bigger edge, 6'6", 270, long arm, impressive athlete. And again, he's only 20 years old, like Arvell Reese. Like, these are the scenarios you have to look at. And I also look at, like, Akeem Messidor from Miami. Could he be at 16? Again, if you fill the holes on the offense, maybe this is a creative way to get it. And I understand it's not Arvell Reese on the edge, but I look like Messidor again. Flashy plays again, super senior, but again, a longer road to get there. But he was a dynamic player on that Miami defense. And I'm just looking at like a couple of the edges like later in this draft. Like, what about pick 33 in that range? Like, do you look at an R. Mason Thomas? Again, undersized, but could he play that edge position? Could you look at a TJ Parker from Clemson? I mean, a lot of what great teams do is they understand the strength of this draft, and there's a lot of good edge players. So maybe you look at it and go, Sonny Styles might be a bit of an overdraft, but if he's the culture changer, he's the leader of our defense, and you put him next to Anzalone, or let's say in the middle of that defense, and you draft an edge later, all of a sudden that defense looks a lot different. And I just look too, like, again, I understand it's not the sexy pick, but again, we always hear this time and time again. Aaron Glenn needs to change the culture. The Jets have a Ron culture. If I had to put this in a vacuum, and I look at these 3 players, again, all 3 are great players, David Bailey, Arvell Reese, and Sonny Styles. And I said, they're going to give you close enough production, but one of them is going to change your culture and be a team leader. Because let's face it, the Jets don't really have a lot of team leaders. I mean, you saw with Devontae Adams. When he came in, he basically took over the leadership role, even though he was there for 20 minutes. You see it with Harrison Phillips, a guy that, again, wasn't here in training camp, got traded right before the season, and became the leader of that defense because, quote, there wasn't a leader. Basically, since C.J. Mosley left, they don't have a leader on that defense. And they don't really seem to have a lot of leaders, quote, on this team. And I get it. They don't have the true quarterback. I feel Garrett Wilson is a great example on offense. But I look at the defense. The Jets right now have such a big culture shift that they need to change. And it's such a toxic environment. Now, God, I sound like Kit Wilson from WWE. But is it worth it to maybe overdraft a guy at 2 who maybe isn't a traditional edge? But if he's my defensive captain for 10 years, if he's a guy that's not going to take any of this BS or, quote, Solomope that this team's been plagued with, if he's going to be my anchor of the defense for the next 8 to 10 seasons, it might be worth it. Because, again, I see a lot of edges in this draft that I can talk myself into later in this draft. I see some talented linebackers, but I don't see that quote-unquote culture guy. And everything you heard at the combine about Sonny Styles was, this is an amazing person. This is an amazing leader. And think about it. He's in a room with a lot of first-round picks. just on the defensive side of the ball, there might be 2, 3, maybe 4 other players that he played with this season that go in the top 50. And he was the alpha in that room. In a room full of talent, in a room full of ego, in a room full of superstars, he was the guy they leaned on. And I do think that that is incredibly important. And yeah, you can bring in an Anzalone. You can bring in a Demario Davis. You can bring in that shot of a leadership for one season. That's great. But you need a long-term plan with leadership. And I just look at Sonny Styles, and when you hear about everyone talking about how great he is, and especially the leadership and how people follow him, to me, that's something that the Jets need. They need a personality change. They need some people to come in here and not accept this losing crap anymore. They need people to come and say, we're not doing this again. We're changing the culture. We're not allowing this to happen. And look, Arvell Reese is a great guy. David Bailey is a great guy. But when you hear everyone talk about the leadership quality that Sonny Styles brings, it's hard for me to say, you know what? It's hard for me to pass up at having that guy in that room. And look, I mean, it's off the table now because they franchise tag Breece Hall. They're not, Dan, I think that, again, that takes him off the table. The one thing you're almost hoping for is maybe there's a bidding war for Jeremiah Love. And again, I don't see teams really trading up. But maybe the Cardinals fall in love with him and the Giants decide, well, we really want to go up and get him at number 2. We'll give the Jets a bunch of picks. But then if you move back, you're still going to get like David Bailey, Arvell Reese or something, but then do you lose out on Sonny Styles? And look, I could see Sonny Styles going high as 4. I could see Robert Saleh saying, I got Jermaine. I need a captain of the defense. I'll get Sonny Styles. I could see the Giants at 5 going Sonny Styles. Like, for people thinking Sonny Styles could be there at like 12 or 13, that to me is the hardest one. I could see Caleb Downs being there. I can see a couple of the receivers being there. I don't see Sonny Styles being there, especially with, the ability. And again, looks like we have a breaking trade for LA. Let me just check on this really quick. It sounds like multiple picks were moved. Let's see. Adam Schefter. Rams are trading cornerback Trent McDuffie for a haul. Rams are getting Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs. Chiefs are getting first-round pick this year, 29. So the Rams have moved down their 29th pick, which, again, I thought could be Ty Simpson. 5th, 6th, and a 3rd in 2027. That's a haul for Trent McDuffie. And look, the Chiefs now all of a sudden have 2 first-round picks. Maybe they get frisky and move back out of – maybe they'll be willing to move out of, I think they're pick 9. But again, big trade, all-pro Trent McDuffie going to the Rams. And I think this thing tells us 2 things. Number one, Rams are all in. Rams are all in with Matthew Stafford. They're going for, again, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. They're loaded up. They're going for a Super Bowl. And the Chiefs, smartly, I think, are retooling. And look, they can build around Patrick Mahomes, but they need to get a lot of bodies in that room. Travis Kelce's he back next year? Is next year's last year? I'd also look to trade Chris Jones if I was them, try to get as many picks because they need to fill out this roster. They have a lot of holes on this roster. And again, the 2027 pick is huge for them because that's a really good draft. So, the Rams giving up 4 picks for Trent McDuffie. And look, this makes the Rams better. This makes them a team, again, Rams F them picks, right? Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 picks. And you look back, I know it's 4 total picks, but looking back now at the Sauce Gardner trade, damn, the 2 firsts and, A.D. Mitchell, that's a haul. And look, I do think the Jets could still make some trades. Depending on how they attack the linebacker room, I do think Jamie Sherwood could potentially be available. But, the big thing is they brought back Breece Hall. I think he's going to have a great season especially they can just get average quarterback play. Again, we say that all the time. Giants also releasing like Bobby Okereke. Again, a lot of intriguing players out there, especially defensively out there as well. So I'm curious to see what they do. And look, I do think Cardinal Tate at 16 is definitely could be available. I do think that the 40 time again, people make such a big deal about the 40. 4 or 5 is still a good enough time for me, and especially for a number 2 receiver. And I always say this: people always, I think the 40 is important, but it's more of like if a guy runs slower than really expect. I mean, Carnell Tate was in the range, but I just always go back to this. People are like, oh, the 40 matters, the 40 matters. Jerry Rice ran a 4.740. Jerry Rice ran a 4.740. I think he was pretty good, don't you? you know. Kev, quick recap, mock draft. So again, for those of you joining us, you can go back and check it out early in the video. But quick recap, I gave more analysis earlier, but my mock pick 2, Arvell Reese from Ohio State, pick 16, Carnell Tate, pick 33, trade with the Steelers, trade down for picks 53, 76, and 135, which is a late third and a late fourth. Pick 44, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety. Pick 53, Gabe Arcus, the edge out of Illinois. And pick 76, Gennings Dunker, the guard from Iowa, who would then have the best flow in the middle of the offensive line with Joe Tippmann. Kev, I think that's BTW, but again, Reese and Styles. I'm leaning towards Styles. Speaks well and was defensive. Again, that's the thing too. Like the intangibles of this defense, and the Jets are a unique situation. Like they need serious guys that can turn this around. And again, Arvell Reese can make an impact on the field. I'm not questioning that. But if Sonny Styles is that leader of this defense, is the guy that takes no crap, is the guy that gets this team organized, is a guy that can help build a culture. And that's one thing you have to ask yourself. If you're Aaron Glenn, Darren Mucci, yes, I know Arvell Reese has a slightly higher ceiling. Yes, I understand he projects to an edge. Yes, I know he's projected to a more premium position. I get all of that. But the Jets last year and for the last 15 years have severely lacked leadership or put the role of leadership where I don't think it was meant to be. You had guys like Jamal Adams who would boast to us that they were the leader, but then you hear behind the scenes, yeah, no one was really following. Then Aaron Rodgers, we'll follow Aaron Rodgers as our leader. Didn't turn out too good. We'll make Zach Wilson a captain before he's proven anything. Like the Jets, one of the big things that we've had for the last 15 years during this drought is we haven't had that leadership. We haven't had that alpha. We haven't had those dogs. And when I look at it, I understand middle linebacker, quote unquote, isn't a premium position. But when I look at the Jets, when they've been good and when they've had good leadership, it's because they've had someone big in the middle. Under Mangini, it was David Harris and Demario Davis. Under Rex Ryan, Bart Scott was the first person he called. And Bart Scott, again, wasn't the most talented linebacker, but he made sure that everyone bought in. He was the leader. Everyone followed him. He made sure that they were a respected defense. And basically for the last 15 years, have they had that alpha on the defense? I think some have tried. I think Jermaine tried to lead by example. I think that there's been certain pieces, but it's troubling when, and again, I'm not trying to put blame here, but you have two veterans that have proven that there's a lack of leadership and a lack of alphas in the room. You had it when Devontae Adams was traded, and he felt that he could come in here after a week and basically speak up in the locker room because that was the lack of leadership. And then you also had Harrison Phillips, who, again, I respect the hell out of Harrison Phillips. But Harrison Phillips was traded here right before the season and basically became that de facto leader because there was no one else. And look, I think Harrison Phillips is a good leader, but he's a short-term dopamine hit to solving the problem. And that's why, like, when I look at Sonny Styles, you know, I look at Styles and I go, this is a guy that can play all over the defense. He can make an impact, but if he's the leader for 8 to 10 years, like I'm talking myself into, I can find other edges in this draft. I can find other players. And again, they're not as high end as David Bailey and Arvel Reese. I get it. But when I'm looking for like the true dogs and alphas in this draft, I don't see a lot. I see it in him. I see it in Sonny Styles. And that's why I think the Jets seriously need to consider him too. And I get it. He's a middle linebacker. I get it. He's not a premium position. But one of the best comments I heard about this draft is this. This is a great draft for non-premium positions. Outside of maybe receiver. But this isn't an elite tackle class. There's a lot of good depth, but not necessarily at the top. This is a deep edge class. This is a deep D tackle class. But you look at, there's a lot of good linebackers in this draft too. And I understand that a middle linebacker isn't the quote unquote premium position. But when I look at the Jets, they need guys that are going to step up and be the leader and be the change. And part of the problem is the last couple of years, they've had guys that, oh, woe is me. Here we go again. Like, you need to stop that. And if Sonny Styles is going to bring in a character that's not going to allow that to happen. And yeah, Arvel Reese might be the more impactful quote player in the stat sheet and on the defense, but the Jets need a culture change. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. Like, the Jets have been looking for leadership, and they either don't find leadership, have not gone out and gotten leadership, or they put their leadership in the wrong hands. And if I'm this team and Sonny Styles is going to whip this defense into shape and going to be the captain of this defense, I mean, look at this defense since CJ Mosley. And I understand CJ Mosley can be a little bit sour grapes with some Jet fans for the amount of money he made and for being injured. But when he was on the field, he was the captain of that defense. That defense was a top 5 unit when he's out there. You saw the times when he got injured and toward the end of his career when he couldn't go anymore, and you had to put Jamie Sherwood or Quincy out there at the same time to quote unquote run this defense and be the play caller and be the captain out there. This defense did not look the same. I mean, the Jets are looking for their quarterback. They've been looking for their quarterback since Joe Namath. But there's another quarterback they desperately need, and that's a quarterback of the defense. And they had it with CJ Mosley. They had it with Bart Scott. My big thing is you need to find that quarterback of the defense, and I think that could be Sonny Styles. The Jets are going to look for a quarterback. I don't think it's in this draft. I think it's in the 2027 draft. But why not get the quarterback of the defense when you can? That, to me, is the important thing. Get the quarterback of the defense in this draft and your true future quarterback in 2027. That's going to do it for this episode of Rich Sports Talk. Make sure to bash that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest videos. Check us out at the handle Rich Sports Talk on social media. And also, if you want to take us on the go, take us wherever podcasts are available. Again, we're on all those podcasts. You have ideas for future videos, let me know. And I do have a little bit of a special announcement. Again, let me know if you want another version of this. But since it is draft season, and since this is 25 years in the making, I'm going to do the top 25 draft busts for the New York Jets for the last 25 years. Again, I think it is a fun video I'm working on. I'm working on it right now. If you want me to do the top 25 best draft picks, let me know. But I will say it was hard to order it. It was something, special is not the word, intriguing to see some of these Jets draft picks. And again, I think some will surprise you. I have a whole formula I've worked out for it. Again, it's not perfect. A lot of it's my opinion. But I do think it will be a fun way to relive the last 25 years or look at a lot of the missteps to why the Jets are where they are right now. But that video is coming out. But let me know in the comments below if you want me to do the top 25 best draft picks of the last 25 years. Let me know in the comments below. We have plenty of more draft content, free agency coming up next week. We're going to be here along for the ride. We got so much great content coming. Make sure to like and subscribe because you don't want to miss any of it. I'll see you next time in our next mock draft here on Rich Sports.